Good evening. Welcome to those of you who are joining us on Facebook tonight. It is Tuesday night Bible study. I want to jump right into what we're talking about tonight. So let's turn over to Proverbs chapter 18 to start. Proverbs chapter 18. Verse 24, the man of many friends, a friend of all the world, will prove himself a bad friend, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. And I want to kind of focus on this verse tonight, but to start out, I wanted to focus on the first part of it. The man of many friends will prove himself a bad friend. Another translation says, a man of many companions may come to ruin. And at first, you take a look at this and say, so that means it's bad to have friends. And that's not what the Bible's trying to say. But in today's society, we throw around the word friend so carelessly. Like, this person's my friend, this person's my friend. Oh, I have this many friends on Facebook and stuff like that. And you can see the statistics, especially among young people, who are so into their friend circle on social media. I looked up some statistics. According to the CDC and other public health organizations, the rate of teen suicides increased more than 30% between 2007 and 2015, which coincides with a similarly increasing rate of social media use among that age group. So the more the social media influence and use is in that age group, the more the suicides are going up. And you can say, why? Many different things. Suicide is now the second leading cause of death among those aged 10 to 34. 10 years old to 34 years old. A study published by the Pew Research Center concluded that the heightened risk of suicidal ideation among teens coincided not just with how often social media apps and platforms were used, but also with what types of content were being accessed. So obviously they're looking at things they shouldn't be accessing and stuff like that. The Pew Research Center found that approximately 46% of teen social media users felt overwhelmed by the drama and cyberbullying on social media apps. 43% felt pressured to only post content which would make them look good to others. So they're being influenced by what other people are thinking as to what they can post or what they have to show. 37% felt pressured to only post content that can get a lot of likes and comments. 26% felt worse about their own life due to what they saw on social media. So for all these, I have 1,000 friends on Facebook, there's also a certain level of they have a stigma they have to live up to. They have a standard, not the right kind of standard, that they feel pressured to live up to. Like, if I'm not like so-and-so on Facebook, or if I don't look like so-and-so on Instagram, then I'm not good enough. And this is their role models. What they don't realize is that so many of these people that are on there, that's not their real life. They're hiding a lot of stuff from you. And they necessarily are not as happy as you think they are either. But regardless of that, that has that effect on them. Social media is all about relationships. Again, how many friends you can have. And when you have take a 13-year-old girl who's just coming into this time in life, which is so unsettling to begin with, you're not quite an adult, you're not even a young adult, you're coming out of childhood, and you're trying to find out where you belong in the world, in society, what's your place, and not to mention the fact that you're being assaulted by these other messages, even in the school system, as to whether you can change your identity and all this type of stuff. But you're coming into this place in social media where they're really, quite frankly, not capable of handling yet. They're afraid of missing out on something. They're afraid if they have to compare themselves with each other, and then you get just the meanness of kids in general. Okay, there's some people. I'll take that back. Not just kids. You can get to some groups on Facebook, and people are just mean. They're just plain mean. For no other reason that they have nothing better to do with their time. And if you ask even the simplest question, well, you're an idiot, you don't deserve to live because you did that. because you asked that question. And it's like, sometimes it makes you step back and say, okay, wait a minute, what's going on here? Obviously, the enemy has an agenda. And I think that there's a time and there's a place for social media, and there's a purpose for it. But when it's taken outside of its intended use, much like anything else in life, you take it outside of its intended use, and it can be destructive. And that's what we're seeing happen in our teens especially. But across the boards, whether you're a teenager or whether you're an adult, users are kind of obsessed with this instant gratification they get from posting things on social media. Okay, I get this many likes on this post that I did, and it makes you feel good. It actually, scientists have said that it does something to the hormones in your brain and raises endorphins and stuff. So it's like your reward system in your brain. You're training yourself to have a reward every time you pick up your phone and see the likes. So it's detrimental, actually, to any of our health. Social media may have some good intentions, connecting with people around the world, showing you content that you're interested in, and providing entertainment, but there's also negative consequences to the scrolling. Young adults who use social media are 3 times as likely to suffer from depression, putting a large percentage of the population at risk for suicidal thoughts and behaviors. In the US, suicide rates have declined since 2019, but it continues to be a serious concern. Almost every teen now has an account on at least one social media platform. They use social media to reach out to friends, share experiences, and tell the world about themselves. However, without realizing it, they're managing an addiction. And that's what it becomes. It becomes an addiction. They can't put it down. They can't even imagine 2 days without it. If you can't go any time without something, it becomes an addiction. And that's not healthy for any of us. A licensed clinical social worker explains how our smartphones are by design addictive. We get a dopamine release in our brains when we pick up our phone or log into social media. Using social apps is essentially priming your brain into thinking you are rewarding yourself every time you pick up a device. Delete the social media apps from your phone. So I personally have done that. Just delete it off. Then you don't even have the temptation to, okay, your phone dings and you got a notification from Facebook or you got a notification from these things. Don't even have it on there, because you have your phones with you all the time and it's part of connection with life. But if your phone has you and you don't have your phone, that's where the challenge lies. So they're suggesting to teens especially to start spending time with friends and family and leave the devices at home. Just leave it behind. What is happening is social media is starting to replace personal connections. And you have entire dating sites, you have all these things that happen where people think that they're having a relationship with a person that's an entirely made-up person. It's somebody who's acting like this, and it actually ends up being dangerous. But what happens is, originally Facebook capped the number of friends you could have at 1,000. You could only have 1,000 friends, no more. But then they started raising it to 5,000, and then they pulled off the restrictions. So some people are like, oh, who has the most friends on Facebook? Happens to be this wrestler and actor guy who has 6,223 friends. That's not followers. Followers are different than friends. Anyways, but it's interesting to use the word friends, even in a social media context, especially. I mean, even though you might know many of your online friends, I mean, personally, I don't tend to accept friend requests from people that I don't know, just because I don't know you. Why would I want to engage with you in that sense? But even though you might know some of those people online, they're not really friends in the traditional sense. Okay? The idea that someone has a large number of online friends makes us think that, that something is special about that person. People like to be able to say, I have thousands of friends. Yeah, but really? Are they really your friends? Are they there when you need them? Or are you just another number on their page? Quite often, you're just another number on your page. A couple other translations of this verse that we read. Someone with many so-called friends may end up friendless, but a true friend is closer than a brother. Another translation says, there are persons for companionship, but then there are friends who are more loyal than family. Yet another translation says, the man of too many friends, chosen indiscriminately, will be broken in pieces and come to ruin. But there is a true loving friend who is reliable and sticks closer than a brother. So a lot of times in this verse, both of these words are translated friends. The man of many friends will prove himself a bad friend, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. So the same word is used in English, but it's not the same word in Hebrew. And again, here's where we keep coming back to the Hebrew because it's so significant when you start looking into, what was the meaning of what he's trying to communicate? So the first word in Hebrew used here, the man of many friends, is the word re'ah, which means companion or neighbor. It's used in the Ten Commandments where it says you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. So it's used as a casual acquaintance, your neighbor, somebody that, yeah, I know them really well, but I wouldn't consider them in my inner circle, so to speak. The second word used is the word ohev, which is one that we all know. It comes from ahav, which means a loved one, a dear, close friend. It's used in the Bible about husbands loving their wives, Abraham loving Isaac, us loving God, and God loving us. So it's referring to a deep personal love. So again, picking apart that verse, a man of many acquaintances, many companions on a surface level, will end up falling into ruin. But there's one close friend who will stick closer than a brother, closer than any family member. This word is also used in Isaiah 41:8 when it says, but you, Israel, my servant, Jacob, whom I have chosen, the offspring of Abraham, my friend. So it's a deep personal connection. You can't have a deep personal connection with 6,223 people. It's just not possible. And in many ways, the social media format is present even in many modern churches. And there's nothing wrong with having many members in your church, but you can't say that if you have a 10,000 member church, that pastor does not know every single one of those people personally. And often what you find is they have associate pastors under them and subgroups that get together because you need to have that personal connection. You can't just be part of one of a crowd. Kind of back to the Torah portion that we were talking about a couple weeks ago where they were counting each person. Even in the nation of millions of people, each person counted. But what distinguishes this one friend that it's saying? This one friend who sticks closer than a brother. That means it's closer than even a family member. And put this in perspective of where this is coming from, because in the Bible and in Old Testament times, family was everything. Family was held in high regard. But yet, if you had a person that came into your house, you would put their safety above even your own family. You counted your friend as someone that I might not be related to them, but I have covenant with them. It's somebody that you're in a personal covenant with. That's why it's important that you choose your friends wisely. Proverbs 22:24-25 says, make no friendship with a man given to anger, nor go with a wrathful man, lest you learn his ways and entangle yourself in a snare. So we have to choose our friends wisely. Again, it's talking about deep, close friends, not just acquaintances. At some point in your life, you're going to become acquainted with people who are of all kinds of things that you don't want to be. That doesn't mean that we shun everybody, but you're not bringing them into your deep, intimate circle. Who you should be the closest friend to is people who are going to build you up in Yeshua. Proverbs 13:20, familiar verse, says, whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. So you hang out with the wrong crowd, you're going to end up having the consequences of it. You tend to find that people drift to the lowest common denominator, and if you get with the crowd that's all, telling off jokes and living lifestyles that you don't want to be living, the pressure is going to be to go with them, to not stand apart as separate. It's going to be more pressure. Why put yourself in a situation where you're having to fight more pressure? There's already enough pressure to compromise in the world around us without choosing friends that make you have to compromise. Proverbs 24, 1 through 2 says, "Be not envious of evil men, nor desire to be with them, for their hearts devise violence, and their lips talk of trouble." So we are supposed to have the right kind of friends. But why is it so important to have a good friend? I mean, content to say, well, I don't need any friends. I can be just by myself in the middle of nowhere, and I'm happy and content, and I don't need anybody. But according to the Bible, everybody needs someone in their life. Proverbs 27:17 says, "As iron sharpens iron, so a man sharpens the countenance of his friend." That could be good or bad. You're going to be sharpening someone, and you think of sharpening, it's just like using almost like sharpening a weapon, sharpening a knife, sharpening a sword. And you think about it, that object, that knife, that sword, whatever, can be used for good or it can be used for bad. It can be used to kill, or it can be used to cut up your meat so that you can cook it over the fire. You know, there's many purposes to the sharpening. It just has to be in the right sense. But friends, you know, this is just kind of in the natural. Friends edify us. Well, they're supposed to. Most friends are supposed to. And they help us overcome anxiety and worry most of the time. Like maybe there's some friends that induce more anxiety and stress and worry. Maybe those aren't the right kind of friends you have. But loneliness makes people unhappy, but it can be a killer too. Some of these people who have the 5,000 friends on Facebook are the loneliest people in the world. When it comes down to it, yeah, I got 1,000 likes on this post, but nobody really knows me. Nobody really knows my inner thoughts. Nobody knows who I am. I just am another like on a page, another number. And that's what the enemy has always tried to do, is break us down into just a number. That's what he did in the Holocaust with the Jews. Just going to take your humanity away and assign a number to you. But Yahweh, when he did the census of his people, he lifted their heads. It was not just, oh, you're number one, you're number 1051. You're not just a number. You're a person with an identity and a purpose, and I see you. That's what's so powerful about that episode of Chosen where he says to Nathaniel, I saw you. I saw you. You know, it doesn't matter where you are. Yahweh always sees you. And sometimes there's people out there, and quite frankly, that contributes to so much of the suicide, is there's people out there, does anybody see me? Does anybody know what I'm going through? Does anybody care? How many people have been headed off? I saw this powerful testimony of this man who actually was going through with trying to commit suicide. And however he was saved, it was by a miracle of God that he was saved, because the moment he jumped off the bridge, he regretted it. He said, if somebody on that bus when I was heading there would have just noticed that I was crying and said, hey, are you okay? Just one person had noticed, he wouldn't have done it. But that just confirmed to him, nobody cares. Nobody cares where I'm at. And his whole mission now is to let people know, I care. You know, somebody cares about you. How many people do we just walk by every day and not realize they might not have one person in their life that they think cares? We need to be that one person. And sometimes it is just one word to show them that you care. We see that all the time at the feeding program here. That if you attach a humanity to someone, if you say, I know that you're better than whatever circumstance you're in, it lifts them out of it. And it gives them a reason, gives them a purpose, gives them hope. But not only does it help you overcome loneliness, but if you're in a place of loneliness, a study has found lonely people react more intensely to life's challenges. They have higher levels of epinephrine, which is a stress hormone. They have higher levels of blood pressure, which leads to heart attacks and strokes and all this stuff. So the lonely people, it's affecting their health not to have somebody in their life. Friends can also help motivate us to maintain physical health. You know, I mean, certain habits can be contagious among friends. Well, you're doing that, I want to do that too. And if it's geared toward the positive way, again, we tend to look at it as, well, friends can drag you down. But if you have the right kinds of friends, they can motivate you to keep up healthy lifestyles and keep up, even when you're talking about having that friend that, okay, we're going to study the Word of God together. And they can help you maintain that, they can help you grow, and they can help you stay on your course. The U.S. researchers who analyzed the social ties of more than 12,000 people found clusters of obese people and clusters of thin people, suggesting that friends have a strong influence on each other's weight. So we can influence each other toward good things. Friends help us live longer. Friends are twice as likely to die over 2 to 4 years as who have no friends as those who have more friends, if they're facing a health challenge. So if somebody is going into a major health challenge, they have no friends, there's nobody that they feel is close to them, they're twice more likely to die as somebody who they have somebody in their life as a friend. It gives them the strength to be able to fight their battles. And we'll see in a little bit how biblical that is. They encourage us to keep healthy relationships. They help us to sharpen our relationship skills. You know, if you don't have anybody that you're communicating with, how are you going to communicate better? They inspire us. They're supposed to inspire us anyways. A big biblical example that we know well is David and Jonathan. Jonathan, in spite of the fact that his father Saul is pursuing David, trying to kill him, he's going against what his own family is standing for, and he's standing with David. You know, in 1 Samuel 18 through 20, you see all this story of these two men. And sometimes you see this occasion where David's out in the woods and he's running, and Jonathan goes to meet him and strengthens him in the Lord. And so that's the kind of relationship that we're meant to have. Those ones who will strengthen each other in the Lord. Proverbs 17:17 says, "A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity." That is a key. You know, a friend loves at all times, not just when you're popular. How many people have been popular on social media and then something happens and they lose all their followers? And it's like, well, you can see how faithful those friends were. Ecclesiastes chapter 4, let's turn over there. Ecclesiastes chapter 4, starting at verse 8. "Here is one alone, no one with him. He has neither child nor brother. Yet there is no end to all his labor, neither is his eye satisfied with riches. Neither does he ask, for whom do I labor and deprive myself of good?" See, just that statement alone, somebody's alone, there's no point to anything. Like, why are you working so hard? At some point, no matter how wealthy you are, no matter how many riches you have, you need someone as a companion. You need someone as a close friend to share it with. Otherwise, it's useless. Or as the writer of Ecclesiastes said, this is all vanity. Vanity, vanity. It's all vanity. Verse 9, "Two are better than one because they have a good, more satisfying reward for their labor. For if they fall, the one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him who is alone when he falls and has not another to lift him up. Again, if two lie down together, then they have warmth. But how can one be warm alone? And though a man might prevail against him who is alone, two will withstand him. A threefold cord is not quickly broken." So faithful friends can make each other better in many ways. A true friend will warn you about the hazards ahead, and he'll help you get out of situations that you've gotten yourself into. You know, Proverbs 27:6 says, "Faithful are the wounds of a friend, but the kisses of an enemy are deceitful." A true friend will not always make you feel good. A true friend will not just tell you what they think you want to hear. Or, you know, sometimes a true friend will tell you things that are just plain hurtful, but you need to hear it. Because they are caring enough that I don't care if you don't like me for a moment, but I want to see you get out of this pit that you've gotten yourself into. All of us need that kind of friend in our life that will get in our face. But all of us need to be that kind of friend too. There's two sides to the coin. It's not just all about what kind of friend I have, but what kind of friend am I? If we're going astray, we need true friends who speak God's truth to us, and we need to be true friends who speak God's word even when it's hard to do. You know, we got to be honest. That's the biggest thing in friendships. A close friendship needs to have honesty between people. If there's no trust, there's no openness, no honesty, you don't really have a relationship. You're just companions. William Shakespeare, an interesting quote, said, "Everyone that flatters you is no friend in misery. Words are easy, like the wind. Faithful friends are hard to find." How true is that? Faithful friends are hard to find. It's easy for somebody to just say words to you. And quite frankly, I think as you go through life, you realize how fleeting words are. So you don't take much account into words that are said to you if there's no actions that back them up to prove the truth of them. According to a Scottish proverb, false friends are worse than bitter enemies. False friends are worse than bitter enemies. You know, you ever hear the phrase, with friends like that, who needs enemies? You know, sometimes if you get the bad friends that are false friends, that hurts far worse than a stab from an enemy, you know, when they turn on you. One doctor, you know, theological doctor, not physical doctor, said, "A friend is invaluable if we stumble or fall on the path of life. As it says in Ecclesiastes, woe to him that is alone when he falls." We're supposed to help each other stand up. We're supposed to edify each other, build each other up. Galatians 6:1 says, brothers and sisters, if someone is caught in a sin, you who live by the Spirit should restore that person gently. But watch yourselves, or you also may be tempted. You know, that's one of the biggest things. If you're trying to save somebody in the natural, say somebody's drowning in the water, what is the biggest thing they tell you? You have to be careful that person can't grab a hold of you and drag you under the water, because then both of you are drowning, and then you're not going to be able to help them. So when you're trying to rescue somebody out of a situation that they're in, especially if it's a sin or a situation that the enemy has trapped them in, you need to be on guard yourself that you're not caught up in it yourself. Proverbs 27 verse 9 says, oil and perfume make the heart glad, and the sweetness of a friend comes from his earnest counsel. You ever have somebody who, like that said, about speaking the truth to you, and even if it wounds at first, it turns to sweetness because you realize how much they love you. So when you feel cold, a friend will warm you up, according to this verse. That's not just a physical warmth. Think of it. If your fire for God has started to go cold, if you have a true friend, they're going to come right up alongside you and get you warm again. They're going to feed your flame and start to get you back to where you were. When you encounter opposition, a true friend will help you fight your battles. They're not just going to say, well, that's your fight. Sorry about you. I'm dealing with my own situations in life. And when your name is known by far and wide, that often means you're not known at all, as I said in the beginning. If you're known widely on social media, people might know your name, they might know a few things about you, but they do not know you. They don't know you as a person. They don't know who you are, how you breathe, what you exist for. They don't know your inner thoughts. When you encounter challenging situations in life, the masses of people that know your name will not be there for you. They're not going to be there when you're encountering challenging situations. It's better to be known well by one good friend than by many spectators. You know, I don't want a million people to know my name. I'd rather have one person who knows me. You know, if you think about it, as adults, we don't tend to make friends as easily as children do. If you think back when you were a child, you know, like, okay, I'm 6, you're 6, we have a lot in common, let's just become friends. But somehow it changes when you get older. Like, I mean, it's not like, I'm 30, you're 30, we have a lot in common, let's get together. You know, it just changes the dynamics a little bit. And just the tendency is that maybe from walking through situations in life, we're more leery of getting friends, you know, because you've experienced people who are fake friends or whatever. But it's not as easy to make friends. But as the proverb that we read said, it's not about how many friends you have, it's how close they are. It's not about quantity, it's about quality. Quality is always better than quantity. If you have a few quality friends that are with you through thick and thin, that's far better than a million other friends. And in order to have good friends, you have to be a good friend. You know, friends can make the bad times sweeter. And, you know, if you think about it, some of the best times in life would be terrible without someone to share it with, you know. But if you're the kind of person that's like, oh, well, I'm so needy, I need friends, I need love, I need people to come and friend me, then you're probably the hardest type of person to be friends with. You know, if you're just so needy and always like a sponge, I need this attention, I need people to pay attention to me, you're going to be a hard person to be a friend with. So you have to think about what must I do? What can I do to be the sort of friend that God's Word calls me to be? So again, this is not just about you having friends, but it's about you being friends. And I think we have to ask ourselves a question of what kind of friend am I? Like, it has to be an honest look, take account of yourself and find out what kind of friend am I? Am I a fake friend? Am I a stinky friend? I'm not talking about physical. It's like what was it? Coach on the Facing the Giants. The aroma of your heart. Are you a faithful friend? And of course, we all want to say we're a faithful friend. But the Proverbs also says that many a man proclaims his own faithfulness, but how can you find a faithful man? So they're far more rare than you expect it to be. It's anyways, I'm not going to go down that path. Do you seek the good of others? Like when you go about your life, are you seeking the good of others, or are you more concerned with how people are treating you, how they make you feel, how they spoke to you, how they didn't speak to you, this or that? Are you more concerned with how they make you feel than how you make them feel? Again, our whole assignment as believers is that we look out for the good of others and not ourselves, as the Apostle Paul said. Many people, as I said, who have somebody close to them who commits suicide, they'll say in hindsight that they wish they had paid attention to the signs. The signs were there, but they were too caught up in their own lives, too caught up in what was going on. They dismissed it. And how often do you personally check up on the people in your life with a genuine love? Not because you want something from them or you just want to chit-chat, but do you check up on them to see how they're doing personally? Do you invest your time into them? Friendships require investment. If you want to have a friend, you have to be a friend. Proverbs 3:29 through 30 says, "Do not plan evil against your neighbor who dwells trustingly beside you. Do not contend with a man for no reason when he has done you no harm." I want to ask for a show of hands, but has anybody almost ruined a relationship because you said something out of reaction when you're having a bad day? You know, I think we've all been there before. But in hindsight, maybe we should just learn to keep our mouths shut more when we're having a bad day to avoid ruining those close relationships. Proverbs 17 verse 9 says, "Whoever covers an offense seeks love, but he who repeats a matter separates close friends." We have to value the relationship more than whatever momentary feelings we might have. Because feelings can change. Feelings can change in a moment, overnight. You know, you can be here one moment, you can be here the next. So don't make any decisions or say anything based off your feelings. That's got to be what we put into practice in our life. Another question is, are you an annoying friend? And I think we might all know some people in our lives. But it's not just a matter of personality or temperament. You know, some people blame it on that. Well, it's just my personality. It's just how I was born, how I was raised, or whatever. But there's a certain line where people can cross into rudeness. And we don't want to be rude people. We don't want to be annoying people. Proverbs 27:14 says, "Whoever blesses his neighbor with a loud voice rising early in the morning will be counted as cursing." So there's a certain way that you can come off that's annoying, quite frankly. And we don't want to be that. None of us do. We want to make sure that we are taking into account the feelings of everybody else around us. Again, not looking to our own feelings or how I am or whatever, but how am I coming off to people around me? Are we a false friend? A false friend is in it to win for himself. They're only in it as long as they get something out of it, you know? And they'll leave as soon as your life gets challenging. They don't want to deal with your messy situation. They don't want to deal when you're not the popular person. A faithful friend is there in times of trouble. Proverbs 27:10 says, "Do not forsake your friend and your father's friend, and do not go to your brother's house in the day of calamity. Better is a neighbor who is near than a brother who is far away." So those type of friends are the ones that we want to cultivate, that we want to have. The faithful friend, you know, the false friends will leave when your life gets messy. Look at the prodigal son. Okay, he had a lot of friends because of his wealth and all that, but as soon as he lost it all, they all left. But a faithful friend will not do that. They'll say, okay, your life got messy, I'm coming over. I'm going to come and not sit in your puddle with you, but I'm going to help you get out of it. I'm going to show you the way. A faithful friend knows how to handle conflicts the right way. They don't hold grudges. They don't keep offenses. They don't keep a long, detailed record of the wrongs. To do that is like holding a revolver under your coat as you're going through the relationship. You're always ready to shoot. And when something comes down and you're downloading from that file from your brain the ways you've hurt me, if you're finding that that's what's playing in your mind when you're thinking about things, then you got to delete that file. You got to let go of that. Not just for their sake, but for your own sake. You know, holding an offense or keeping a grudge or keeping bitterness against somebody is like drinking poison and expecting them to die. You know, it's going to end up biting you in the end. And that's not a way to keep friends. Especially, you keep bringing up things and, oh, well, this and that, you did this to me, you did this to me, you said this to me, you did that. It's going to make your friend feel like, well, he can always be bringing up my garbage. She can always be saying that silly thing I said way back when. But your strongest relationships are those that you have a mutual understanding and a mutual forgiveness. Quick to forgive, quick to let go of it, quick to say, okay, well, they must be having a bad day. Something must have happened in their life, giving them the benefit of the doubt. Again, our strongest relationships should be those who lead us to Yeshua, not those who draw us away from Yeshua. John 15, verse 13 says, "Greater love has no one than this, than to lay down his life for his friends." That's the greatest love. And notice it says the greatest love is not to lay down your life for your family. You know, that's expected almost. That's like, okay, well, I'd lay my life down for my child. But what about your close friends? What about the people who mean the most to you in your life? And you look at Yeshua setting the ultimate example for being a friend. He laid down his life for his friends. He laid his life down for us when we were still his enemies. I mean, what kind of love is that? And he's never a fake friend. He's never a false friend. He doesn't need you for anything. You know, he said that in Chosen. That was such a good quote. I don't need you, but I want you by my side. He's only seeking you to give you the advantage, always looking out for your best, not for his own interest. He's looking out for the good of others. He laid down his life for us. He's never a bad friend. He's not quick to beat us down, but he will get in our face to keep us on track because he loves us. He's never annoying. He's slow to anger. And if we just look at the example of what kind of friend he was, that will give us some pointers of what kind of friends we can be and how to be that friend. You know, you look at Yeshua's disciples, and Yeshua, he was betrayed, he was tortured, crucified. Even though his 12 disciples initially were scoffing at the idea that they'd ever turn their backs on him. Lord, though all others forsake you, we will never forsake you. They eventually, later that night, they all left him. All of them. They abandoned him. And those were the closest ones to him. In Matthew 26:56, it says that all the disciples left him and fled. Again, they were afraid that they might be next. They were looking out for their own safety, their own benefit. However, when all of the closest friends and all of the followers had left him, there was one who remained, who was still there, and that was John. John, initially he fled with them, and we see the story of the naked boy running out of the garden. That would have been John, but he came back. He didn't go and hide in the caves or wherever the others did. He was there. Think of it. John, the son of Zebedee, one of the sons of thunder. He was eventually, obviously, Yeshua worked on his heart and softened him because he became the one that was there when it mattered the most. He wasn't just words. You don't tend to hear, he wasn't like Peter that was always just spouting out a bunch of stuff. And Lord, though others deny you, I will never deny you. You don't see as much from John. He was the quiet one. But his actions proved it more than his words. Again, when you talk about words versus actions, it's a powerful thing. He later ended up being the author of the Gospel of John, the 1 John, 2 John, 3 John, Revelation. He was there for Yeshua. He put the fear aside. I'm sure he had to deal with the same fear that the rest of the disciples had to deal with. It might be me next. But he would not abandon Yeshua. And he put his faith in Yeshua. He trusted Yeshua in the worst of circumstances. It's easy to trust in Yeshua when he's changing the water into wine and he's walking on the water and he's healing people and there's crowds of thousands that are coming to hear him. But it's a lot harder when he's stripped naked and hanging on a cross and all the crowds have left and now he's the object of shame. It's a lot more difficult to show up in that moment and be there and to show that I'm still on his side. Think of it. Peter denied him on account of a little servant girl who asked, weren't you with him? And the shame that was on Yeshua at that moment was such that they all turned away from it. But John was there at the foot of the cross. He trusted Yeshua enough to risk his life. And it's interesting with John because you might not realize, you tend to think, he was just the fisherman. But if you read in John 18 and 19, the Zebedee family had a business and they had a house up on the Sea of Galilee, but they also had a city residence in Jerusalem. So they were an upper class family. They were, in a time when there was pretty much no middle class, they had 2 houses. And John left it all because of a call from this rabbi who walks along the coast and says, follow me. He literally left it all, walked away to follow Yeshua. He never turned back. Through the rest of his life, up until Yeshua's last breath, he was there. Where were Yeshua's brothers in that moment? You ask yourself that question. Yeshua had John at the foot of the cross, and John was the only one that was there. Mary was there, the women were there, and yay to the women for sticking with it. But John was the one who was there, not his brothers. Though you think of it, what he ends up doing at the foot of the cross is he turns Mary, his mother, over to John. Mother, behold your son, son, behold your mother. Yeshua, as the oldest, would have had the responsibility to care for his mother after Joseph died. He would have been responsible to take care of him. But he's making sure she's taken care of even after he dies. And naturally, legally, his brothers, his biological brothers, would have had the legal responsibility to care for their mother. But at that time, they didn't believe in Yeshua. They didn't come to believe in Yeshua as the Messiah until long after his death. So they weren't there. They were back at home. They were nowhere to be seen. Again, that's where you see that there's a friend who sticks closer than a brother. And John was that to him. Earlier in Yeshua's ministry, someone had told Yeshua, your mother and your brothers are here to talk to you. And what does he say? Matthew 12:46 through 50, he says, who is my mother and who are my brothers? Then pointing to his disciples, he said, here are my mother and here are my brothers. For whoever does the will of my Father in heaven is my brother and sister and mother. In other words, those are the ones that matter the most because they'll be there for you when it matters. Sometimes family are not the ones who are there for you, the ones who you count on the most. But it's those ones that Yeshua has put in your life for a reason. After his resurrection, Yeshua told Peter to feed his sheep. You have that whole interchange between Yeshua and Peter, feed my sheep, feed my sheep. But on an even deeper level, Yeshua entrusts the care of the woman who had cared for and raised him and given birth to him. I mean, you think of it in your own life. Somebody who's that close to you, would you just turn them over to anybody? Would you say, I just want my business partner to watch after my mother for me? No. You would only trust that to somebody who's close to you, who you know that you know they'll take care of them like I would. They'll be me to that person. It's something to ask a friend to finish a work that you started, which is what Yeshua asked Peter to do. Finish the work I've started. But it's entirely different to entrust the most important woman in your life to somebody. That's not a small request. And John was there, and if you read the accounts, they said that John remained in Jerusalem with Mary until she passed away a few years later. He stayed with her, he took care of her, and she was taken care of well. But John was there, and that's why Yeshua trusted him to take care of her. Where the rest of the disciples had fled, where Yeshua's own brothers were not there, they had stayed at home, John was faithful to the end. And I don't think it's a coincidence that out of all the disciples, John was the last one to die. All the rest of them were martyred, all the rest died early. John outlived them all. And he could not be killed. Like, they tried to boil him in oil. They tried to kill him. They eventually just stuck him on an island because they didn't know what else to do with him. And while he's out there on the island, he has a visitation and an encounter with his Lord and Savior and Master. Yeshua meets with him face to face, and that's when he pens the book of Revelation. His heart was entirely committed to him. And he was that friend to Yeshua that stuck closer than a brother. He was the one that Yeshua loved. Why? Because he was there. It wasn't that Yeshua was playing favorites, it's because he showed up and he stayed there, no matter what. He was there through thick and thin. Do you have a friend that you can trust like that? Do you have that friend who sticks closer than family to you? But I think the bigger question we need to ask ourselves is, are we that kind of friend to someone else? Are we there for that person when they need it? Are we there through thick and thin, no matter what? The ups and the downs, are we there? Are we that friend that sticks closer than a brother to someone? The other question is, do we trust Yeshua like John did? Put yourself in John's shoes for a moment and think of what that would have been like. To go to the cross where they were out hunting anyone who followed Yeshua. You possibly might be the next one. But to trust Yeshua so much that I'm there for him, and you know what? He'll protect me. He'll be there for me, and I'm going to be there for him. So not only is the question that we trust Yeshua, but again, the bigger question is, can Yeshua trust us? If we're not being a faithful friend in our natural friendships, we can't fool ourselves into thinking we're being faithful to him. Our relationships here always reflect our relationship there. And you might think, oh, no, my relationship with God is so much better than my relationships on earth. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. Yeshua had multitudes who followed him. It was far more than the followers on Facebook. He had crowds that loved him. But where were they when he was on the cross, when he was unpopular? They left. Those multitudes of companions, those followers, didn't matter at that moment. Just like they don't matter in our lives. But that friend who stuck closer than a brother was there until his last breath. That's the kind of friend. That's a true friend. And that's the kind of friend we need. And that's the kind of friend we need to be. So I encourage you, as you go forward from here, get before Holy Spirit and let him show you what it means to be that kind of friend. And show you what kind of friends in your life are that to you. Let him show you, let him lead you on that path, just like John. And you'll find that your walk with him will be so much sweeter and so much higher than you ever imagined it would be. Amen. Thank you for those of you who joined us tonight. Trust you've gotten something out of this message. We will see you on Saturday at 11 a.m. Until then, you have a blessed week.